Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Bournemouth.
Is this Bournemouth or Paul?
Bournemouth.
Oh, we're in Bournemouth. Good evening, Bournemouth. How are you?
You're very laid back, aren't you? You're going to make a stand up in a minute.
So,
Take your jacket off if you want.
Oh, will
It is a bit warm. Yeah.
in the next 40 to 50 minutes, depending on when they hold the time cards up, in the next 40 to 50 minutes, we're going to show you how you can be making £50,000 plus in each and every deal using vendor term agreements. Has anybody here heard of a vendor term agreement? Has anybody heard of a instalment contract? That's what we're touching on tonight. So we're going to show you how to do that without the need of taking out a mortgage, without the need of a deposit. And very interestingly, you don't need any credit checks and you don't need to find any tenants. How would it be to have a property portfolio without any tenants?
No eviction.
Fantastic. You don't need to pay for voids or repairs, and you don't need any experience whatsoever. So without further ado, my name is Doug Ponsford, and my background is in financial services actually. I started an IFA practice about 20 or 25 years ago. I became a mortgage broker, and I became a specialist mortgage broker, and I learned via the banks and some contacts that I had, I learned some very, very creative financing strategies. And I remember the very first buy-to-let property I purchased as a mortgage broker, having learned these strategies, was a below market value purchase. Value was 60,000. I agreed 40,000 purchase price. I went to the bank and borrowed 57,000. I paid 40,000 and put 17,000 pounds in the bank. Admittedly, it was easier to do back in those days, but using that strategy has enabled me to build a multi-million-pound property portfolio over those years, which I manage myself today with members of staff, and that brings in net income of well into six figures. Now, if you remember back in 2007, there was a bit of a banking crisis, and at that time I was using other people's money to buy property, both the seller's money and the bank's money, preferring not to use any of my own money in case I actually run out of money. So 2007 there was a banking crisis, the banks tightened their belts and stopped lending. So luckily Mesud came along at that time, and we started using new strategy to acquire properties, and we were then using an exit strategy called vendor term agreements in order to maximise on our profits. Well, using that strategy has enabled us to massively build the portfolio even further, and during the last 4 or 5 years, between us and our students, we bought hundreds and hundreds of properties, again without using any money of our own, using other people's money. And the strategy is, if you use other people's money, doesn't matter how much money you have, if you keep on spending it, you will eventually run out. So, over to you, Mesud.
Good evening, Bournemouth.
Good evening.
It's very nice to be here. You live in a wonderful place. We live in the dark ages up in London. My name is Mr. Sali. I'll give you a bit of background story for myself. You probably haven't seen me before, haven't heard me speaking before. I arrived in 2005, 29th of August, as a university student at Richard Menzies International University in London. So I grew up in a small village in Bulgaria. I come from a very poor background. I arrived with £825 on 29th of August. Next day I had to pay my rent to the university to stay there, and guess how much? £800. Next day I was left with £25 in my wallet. So I had no friends, I didn't know anybody in the UK. I just arrived on my own. I spoke, well, my English was bad, still is, I hope you can understand. And same day I made a decision. I'm going to make it happen in this country, because my parents have invested a lot of their efforts to bring me up and help me come to the UK have a nice education, and succeed in life. Now I have to give back. So same day I found a job and I started working at a local restaurant in the evenings. I was going to university during the day, working part-time in the evenings in the restaurant. So I moved back from the university and I started living in the staff house. So the members of the members of the restaurant, the kitchen porters, the chef, they were living in a house all together in Twickenham, West London, and I started living with them. And soon I realised there was quite a few vacant rooms in the house, and I understood that the owner of the restaurant was renting it from a landlord, and he didn't want to manage the property anymore. And he hated the fact that he had to pay rates, tons of bills, pay rent, etc. And I saw opportunity there and asked him, can I manage the property on your behalf? You know, I'm going to make sure all the rent is paid to the landlord, I'm going to make sure the bills are paid, and at the same time I'm going to be responsible for letting the place and collecting rent as well. Soon I found out there was 2 empty rooms, there was a massive lounge, and there was a massive porch. So I cancelled the lounge, turned it into another bedroom, and all of a sudden I had 3 extra lettable rooms. Soon I realised I was making more money from letting rooms in the house than I was making working part-time in the restaurant. I said, property is great, fantastic, I'd like more of that. So I started attending property network events like this, talking to gurus, talking to other successful people, and learning how to acquire properties with little or no money down. I actually managed to get about £15,000 deposit. In 2007 I called Doug and said, Doug, get me a mortgage. His answer was, well, sorry Mesud, the market is completely shut, banks are not lending. I think you haven't heard about the global financial crisis, you must be kidding. University student with £15,000 deposit in a global financial crisis, getting a mortgage, impossible. So Doug, then we have to find an alternative way of buying and selling houses. You know, I went to a course recently and I learned how to buy houses without actually buying them. Tonight I'm going to show you how we are actually controlling houses with little or no money down at all and make £50,000 a deal. Since then my life has changed. We bought and sold hundreds and hundreds of properties, and I'm going to show you how this can change your life as well. It's massive.
So the overview of the evening is that we're going to look at what is a vendor term agreement. We're going to go through the details of that. We're going to show you how we're making massive profits in each and every deal. We're going to show you some real life examples. Then we're going to go through the buying and controlling of a property, how we use a single document to do that. And then we're going to bring our offer to you. It would be rude of us to come all the way down here to Bournemouth from Kent to share 55 minutes of information with you without offering you the opportunity to learn some more at another time. So we're going to bring some details to you at the end of our presentation.
Doug, what is a vendor term agreement?
Mesud, a vendor term agreement is not what a lot of people think. It's not an option, and it isn't like an option. In fact, a vendor term agreement is a way of selling a property. It's a standard conveyance. What it does, it offers massive opportunities in the present market, because what we're doing, we're looking for a buyer who cannot get a mortgage, either because they don't qualify or because they haven't got a big enough deposit. Now, if we look at the UK population today, do you think that that part of the population, those people that don't qualify for a mortgage and haven't got a big enough deposit, is the biggest part of the population or the smallest part of the population? In fact, it represents about 80%. So there's a few people out there that qualify for a mortgage and can go and buy a house through an estate agent through the standard way. Other people are forced to rent property but would love to own property. Those people are prepared to pay more for property if you offer them a unique opportunity to do so. So in other words, we're looking for somebody who would be prepared to buy a property without the need of a mortgage and with a very small deposit. It's the most profitable strategy by far, even more so than HMOs, because we sell the property to these motivated buyers for up to 25% more than current market value. It also presents massive day one profits because they pay their deposit to their solicitors on exchange, move into the property, and then they pay a monthly premium or a monthly instalment, which is far, far above any rental income that you could achieve. It provides additional profits in a way that, if you compare it with a HMO, which in a sense when we go around these meetings, a lot of people are talking about HMOs because it creates massive cash flow. Well, if you look at the cash flow that a HMO creates and compare it with a vendor term agreement, it's very, very similar. In fact, sometimes a vendor term agreement would be greater. But with a HMO, you have a lot of expenses. So if you could take those expenses away, take the headache of a tenant away, take the expense of repairing the property, maintaining the property, the voids that you experience, sometimes you have to pay agencies. If you take those expenses away, it increases the profit. And that's exactly what vendor term agreements do, because you're selling to a buyer, not allowing a tenant into the property. Therefore, it increases the profit. So it's the most profitable strategy in today's market. Hopefully our examples will just explain that a little further. So we're going to show you how we're making massive profits in every deal, and we're going to start off by explaining a babysit. Has anybody heard of babysitting a property before? Any volunteers? So a couple of you know about the term of babysitting. Usually we use the term babysitting when you're doing an option. The way that we babysit a property is using a single document which enables us to take a power of attorney over the property and take instant control. So this is an example of a property owned by a chap called Glenn. The property is just this, it's a one-bedroom flat, the bottom part there. It's in Station Row, so there's a lot of people going past twice a day to the train and back again. The situation with Glenn was that he wanted to sell this property. The outstanding mortgage was very close to the value of the property, and he wasn't being offered enough to clear the mortgage. All he wanted to do was move in with his girlfriend's parents, save a deposit to buy a house together and have children. This was holding him back because he couldn't sell it and raise enough money to pay off the mortgage. And he was paying the ground rent and service charge and mortgage costs, so he couldn't save money. So we offered to babysit his property, babysit his mortgage payments, and allow him to walk away and never make another payment on this property ever again, and allow him to get on with his life. And that's exactly what we did. So we put it on the market within about an hour. We use this strategy on this particular property. We don't use this anymore. We use Rightmove, etc. But you imagine that we've marketed the property, and there's a lot of people walking past twice a day, and it did gain a lot of interest from the local press. The neighbours made a lot of complaints to the local council, so we got a lot of free publicity.
You go on the front page of Ken Messenger, that has got 65,000 circulation. Do you think somebody called to buy this house?
So Mesud, what's that say?
Buy my one-bedroom flat, £5,000 moves you in, 597 per month, and the flat is yours. No mortgage required. Call Vicky. That's Vicky's phone number, and you can have the flat.
So we found somebody very quickly. What was the name?
Tina Woodward. This is a lady that had a separation from her husband, and they decided to part ways, and she was looking for a small place for herself. So they had a large family home. She had a bit of savings, and she couldn't afford to get a mortgage at the time, because when you go through a separation, usually none of the partners cares about the bills, and the credit score goes down. So she was in a situation like that. She had a little bit of cash, and we were asking only for 5,000. Let me draw this for you. When somebody wants to buy a house from you, and they need to get a mortgage, they usually want to pay market value. But when somebody can't get a mortgage and haven't got enough deposit, they're prepared to pay higher value than the market value. So that's why we can get up to 25% more on the price, because they're not paying all the price today. They're paying a small deposit, and they're making monthly payments, and somewhere down the line you go and get a mortgage and they cash out. So usually this is 3 to 5%. Monthly payments are slightly higher than the rent. Usually they mirror the rate we have on the mortgage on the property. So if the property is at 5% standard variable rate, our buyer pays 6, 6.5, 7%. And that rate always mirrors during the term. So if our rate goes down, their monthly payments goes down. Our monthly payment goes up, our monthly payment goes up. So on this one, how much deposit were you asking? Anyone? 5,000. How much is the monthly payment? 597. Okay. Right. Because she's not paying all the price today, we can ask for a higher value. The value of this property was about £75,000 at the time. The mortgage outstanding was £81,000. So if the seller had to sell the property today, how much loss would there occur? £6,000. He has to fork out £6,000 from his wallet to get rid of the property. At the same time, it was costing him also £100 in negative cash flow as well, because of the service charge, ground rent, and mortgage payments. So it was a terrible property for him. We asked for £5,000 deposit. Tina said, I can give you 19. Do you think we rejected that? So we took the £19,000. That decreased our cash flow to only £40 a month, and we locked Tina in for 7 years. On the installment contract, you can do the same like the banks do. If you borrow money from the bank today, they'll say, well, if you pay me within 3 years, you're going to incur 5% or 3% redemption penalty. Well, we put a similar one, but an amount. We told Tina, if you pay us earlier than 7 years, it's going to cost you extra £6,000 over and above the purchase price, which is $89,995. She said, okay, that's fine, I don't think I'm going to get a mortgage, I'm happy with you guys, I'm going to carry on paying, I'm happy with the arrangement. Okay. After 7 months, they sold the family house and she had £70,000 in her bank account. And she wanted to pay us early. Do you think we rejected that? No. We just added extra £6,000 early redemption penalty, and we took £19,400 profit in 6 months. How many of you would you like that from a 1-bed negative equity flat? Was that hard? Is it difficult?
Interesting thing with this is that